The Galaxy S25 Edge is here, and today we are going to compare it to Galaxy S25 Ultra and also Galaxy S25 base model. The S25 Edge is a light, thin phone. It is only 163 grams, which makes it the same weight as the small S25, and that's, from an engineering point of view, insane. That's in contrast to the massive 218 grams of the S25 Ultra, which means the Ultra is 40% heavier than the S25 Edge. That may not make a big difference for someone like me, who is used to holding massive phones and I sometimes even carry a brick of a rugged phone, but for someone who cares about weight, like my auntie, that's a big deal. But that smaller size, of course, comes with a cost. For one, the battery is also smaller. The S25 Ultra has a 28% larger battery. It is 5000 mAh instead of the 3900 mAh battery on the S25 Edge. The Edge even has a smaller battery than the S25 base model, which has a 4000 mAh battery. What that means in real life is that the Galaxy S25 Edge is probably going to last slightly less than the S25 base model, since the battery capacity is lower and the screen is larger. It will most likely last a full day for most people, including myself, even on 5G, but you may want to consider this form factor and maybe carry a power bank when you are traveling. Also, over the upcoming few years, with the battery naturally degrading, you may find yourself in a pinch from time to time. And more, this is TechMo, and today I'm going to do a comparison of the Galaxy S25 Edge versus the S25 Ultra versus the S25 base model. The Edge is a review unit, but I don't get to keep it and will return it after this review is done. The camera is another point where Samsung needed to compromise to achieve this thinness. There is no telephoto sensor on the S25 Edge, which is not necessarily a deal breaker. For example, the S25 has a telephoto sensor, but since it is not that great, you can probably get a better shot with the main sensor on the Edge compared to the telephoto lens on the S25 base model. Here, I took a shot with 5x zoom on all phones. From left to right, the S25 is not doing great, even though it has a 3x telephoto lens. Since there wasn't enough light in the room, the picture is rather noisy. The Edge, in my opinion, is doing a better job, and cropping from a larger main sensor seems to pay off. The Ultra, of course, has the highest quality since it has a dedicated 5x telephoto lens. Moving to 3x zoom, this time the S25 is doing a bit better, but you can probably notice there is almost no background blur because the telephoto sensor is small. The Edge is doing decently considering it is cropping from the main sensor. The Ultra has a 3x telephoto lens and is also doing a decent job here, but again, the background blur is lacking since the 3x telephoto sensor on the Ultra is rather small. On the main lens, we get more background blur on the Ultra and Edge since they are using a larger sensor. To my knowledge, it is the same ISOCELL HP2 sensor, but they redesigned it for the Edge so it fits inside the S25 Edge, or at least that's what Samsung representative told me. The shadows on the Edge are more lifted, but that could be due to the fact that the framing is a bit different. For the ultra-wide lens, the S25 Ultra has a new improved sensor. Maybe that's why the color science is slightly different between the three models. The S25 Ultra leans more magenta, while the S25 Edge and S25 base are both leaning towards green. For indoor video, the Galaxy S25 has the same processing and features as the others, but since the sensor is smaller, you usually get a slightly noisier result indoor. The phone simply can't gather as much light. Moving to the S25 Edge, this time it is the one with magenta tone, but the video is less noisy and the optical quality has improved, which is a good thing, especially considering the price tag. The S25 Ultra is also doing decently here, but interestingly, the white balance has a lot of yellow. That could be simply because the phones are using different firmware or the framing is slightly different, but the video here is sharp and crisp with decent processing. Of course, the Galaxy S25 Edge is all about that design. The S25 Edge and S25 Ultra have titanium framing, while the S25 base model does not. On the back, it has a 2-camera system, whereas the S25 Ultra has too many, and the S25 base model has 3. And the S25 Edge is thin. It is really thin, only 5.8mm, whereas the S25 Ultra is 8.2mm. Also, if we compare the S25 Edge to the S25 base model, it is again 5.8mm versus 7.2mm. I do think the design of the S25 Edge. I find it rather attractive. Of course, we can argue all day about what's the point of creating such a thin phone, and I personally, as an engineer, can praise this product. I'm sure there is a market for it, but at the same time, I know I'm not the target audience for this phone, and neither is most of YouTube. We are obsessed with camera quality and battery life. The display of Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge sits between the S25 base model and the S25 Ultra. It is 6.7 inches compared to the 6.2 inches on the S25 and 6.9 inches on the S25 Ultra. And again, this is something interesting because I'm sure there is someone out there who wants a phone with a larger display but doesn't want a heavy one. The only difference between these three in the display is that the S25 Ultra has an anti-reflective screen, but the other two do not. That said, if you put the official anti-reflective film on all of them, you wouldn't notice any difference. With a phone this thin, the laws of thermodynamics tell us that it will heat up more than the phone like the S25 Ultra. Now, I doubt the heating would be insane, and we can make an educated guess about how much that would be since we have a similar body, the S25 base model. And I can tell you I don't have heating issues with that phone. That said, I did feel the S25 Edge was a bit too warm when I was taking photos and videos, even at room temperature, and this is something I look into when I do a full review with proper measurements. The S25 Edge has a vapor chamber as large as the S25 Ultra, which will help with heat dissipation. As this unit is a review unit, I won't do any heating tests on it yet, so stay tuned and subscribe because that video is coming soon. Samsung couldn't make the Exynos 2500 on time for this calendar year, which means you get almost the same performance on all of them with the Snapdragon 8 Elite. But you should also note that for extended loads like playing 3D games, you will most likely get more out of the Ultra since the S25 and S25 Edge are going to heat up faster. However, if you are not playing heavy games or doing demanding tasks, you won't notice a difference in performance. The battery capacity of the S25 Edge is smaller than the S25 base model, just slightly. It is significantly smaller than the S25 Ultra though, and is probably the smallest battery capacity on any Android flagship phone you can buy in 2025. That said, if we go into the territory of compact phones, this phone will probably give you better battery life compared to the iPhone 16, S24, S23, iPhone 16 Pro, and phones in that category. Now paired with the Snapdragon 8 Elite, it is not necessarily a huge issue, but like many others, I was wondering why Samsung isn't using the new battery technology to fit a larger cell. I asked this question to Samsung representative but didn't get a direct answer. My personal theory is that maybe the new battery would increase the cost and they didn't want to sacrifice the profit margin, or they didn't want to price the phone higher than the Ultra. Or maybe they simply couldn't secure enough supply for the whole lineup, since Samsung's volume is rather insane. We'll have to wait and see how the whole thing plays out. The charging speed of the S25 Ultra goes up to 45 watts, but for the S25 Edge and S25 base, it is up to 25 watts, which is fair since they have a smaller battery capacities and that 45 watts can heat up the phone. Overall, traditionally the S25 was a safe choice for people that wanted a light phone to carry around. Now, we have another choice, and that's the S25 Edge. This is a bit more of a unique premium phone, in my opinion, that's low-key playing into fashion a bit and is going to be sold in low volume. The S25 Ultra is of course a safe choice, but there are a ton of people who don't want to carry over 200 grams of a phone, even if it gives them better battery life and better camera system. If you want a light phone, you can also simply grab one. If you want to watch the comparison of the best compact phones of 2025, you can watch this video next. Thanks for tuning in to Tecmo, and I will see you in the next one.